you're packed up, thrown into a truck, and then driven somewhere. You don't know if you're going to live or die.
They deprived us and me of what matters fundamentally, freedom.
On November 4th, 1979, over 5,000 Iranian students stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, and they began the 444-day event that is now known as the Iran hostage crisis.
Iran, formerly known as Persia, is located in Central Eurasia. It has a population of over 70 million and is significant for its geostrategic location. Iran, a theocracy, has the third largest oil reserves in the world and is the only country in the world with a predominantly Shiite population. Iran was once home to great powers like the Persian Empire and the Safavid dynasty.
In the early 20th century, the Pahlavi dynasty came into power. Reza Shah was a totalitarian ruler and allied himself with Nazi Germany. In the early 1950s, the populist government, headed by Mossadegh, fulfilled its promise of nationalizing Iranian oil. 3 years later, the American CIA overthrew Mossadegh to stop the nationalization of oil. He was replaced by the Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. The Shah ruled in a ruthless fashion and killed thousands of people.
There was an identification between Washington and the Shah, which became more and more odious to the Iranians in general, as they came to despise the Shah and his government.
In the early 60s, a religious leader, Ruhollah Khomeini, led the fight against the Shah. He was exiled from Iran and would spend 14 years in Iraq, orchestrating the Iranian Revolution. Finally, after years of popular pressure, the Shah's government was deposed and he was forced to leave Iran in January of 1979. Khomeini returned to Tehran a few weeks later as the undisputed spiritual leader of Iran. The transition between the Shah and a formal new government in Iran was a chaotic one.
If there was any mistake, it was not understanding that Khomeini is the one who holds the cards, and maybe they figured that out too late.
One thing rapidly became clear to Washington. The old days of Iran as an unconditional ally and the sweet oil deals that came with it were over.
In response to the new religious government, Bruce Lincoln was dispatched to Iran as charge d'affaires. By not appointing an ambassador, the U.S. sent a non-confidence message to Iran. After the Shah fled the country, the revolutionary forces wanted him back to put him on trial and to charge him for the alleged crimes and abuses he committed during his reign. In early October of 1979, the Shah's health deteriorated. The treatment he needed would be best provided in New York City. On one hand, the administration felt that the Shah should be allowed into the U.S. for humanitarian reasons. Also, the Shah had cultivated long-standing political and personal friendships in the U.S. with figures like Henry Kissinger and Nelson Rockefeller. On the other hand, Tehran made it clear from the beginning that allowing the Shah into the U.S. would be seen as serious defiance to the newly installed regime. As a result of the Shah's acceptance into the U.S., Carter became an unacceptable partner for the Iranians. According to Ambassador Langan, other things should have happened before letting the Shah into the U.S.
I had said, not right now. Wait until I get full credentials and until the government, the Islamic government, had completed its process of putting its own institutions in place.
After the Shah's admittance into the U.S., it took only 13 days for the crisis to begin. On Sunday, November 4, 1979, thousands of students climbed over the walls of the American embassy and took almost every American diplomat hostage.
In 1998, I met one of the leaders of the takeover, Abbas Abdi, in Paris. And he told me that if indeed an Iranian student would have been shot by one of the Marines, that would have given them an excuse to kill us all.
Secular military guards on the other side of Tehran held Langan and his two colleagues in the Foreign Ministry.
Freedom, the very word, will always mean something special to me, having lost it for 444 days.
In late April, President Carter attempted to rescue the hostages with Operation Eagle Claw. Unfortunately, when the helicopters were taking off from the desert, the pilots couldn't see because of a massive sandstorm, and the helicopters crashed into one another. 8 men died and 4 were wounded.
In September of 1980, Iraq, led by Saddam Hussein, invaded Iran in order to become the new dominant Persian state. The war cost Iran billions of dollars, and as a result of it, it felt more pressure to release the hostages in order to end the sanctions that the U.S. had put on Iran.
The Iran-Iraq War, first of all, happened largely because of the revolution in Iran and because of the seizure of the American embassy. As long as the United States was the premier military ally of Iran, Saddam Hussein would not have dared invade Iran.
In the diplomatic front, it is clear that the United States underestimated the Islamic forces. Additionally, the U.S. was not certain who held the power in Iran, and so, the American government did not know whom they should speak with. The U.S. was also not used to dealing with anti-American governments, making it harder for cohesive diplomacy to progress. The Republicans, led by Reagan, were concerned about an October surprise, which was the sudden release of the hostages right before the presidential elections.
Oil prices, inflation, and the hostage crisis helped Governor Ronald Reagan win the presidential election of 1980 in a historic fashion. Immediately after, members of both parties started to negotiate more intensely with Tehran.
We have now reached an agreement with Iran which will result, I believe, in the freedom of our American hostages.
I think the seizure of hostages in Iran was the major reason Jimmy Carter was not reelected.
Did our president do the wrong thing? I'm very hesitant to say that about Jimmy Carter. I think he did his damnedest under the circumstances he had to get us out. And he succeeded in that. We're out, we're back, we're alive and well.
American and Iranian representatives met in Algiers to sign an accord. The document stipulated that the U.S. would not intervene in Iranian affairs, would release Iran's frozen assets, and would drop its claims against Tehran in the International Court. In exchange, Iran would release all American hostages. The accord was signed on January 19, 1981. The following day, 20 minutes after Ronald Reagan's inaugural speech ended, the hostages were released.
Iran needed its assets released to finance the war with Iraq. However, holding the hostages also produced a political gain for the Islamic forces.
They were able to utilize the seizure of the American embassy, the holding of the hostages, the propaganda that they were able to generate out of that act, thrust them fully into power. So Khomeini himself called it a second revolution greater than the first.
This feeling of hating in the United States is so ingrained in and constantly propagated by the regime that it's hard to get a discussion going with the Iranians.
Since January 20th, 1981, the U.S. and Iran have had no diplomatic relations. Had the United States fully understood Iran's cultural background and its current events, the hostage crisis may have been averted. Furthermore, the United States should be talking to both the party in power and its opposition. Some say the lesson the United States of America should learn is to respect other countries' self-determination. In hindsight, Ambassador Langan claims that Iran has suffered more than the U.S. due to the crisis.
When other countries think of Iran today, when people almost anywhere think of Iran today, one of their first reactions is, oh yeah, that's that country that took diplomats hostage, isn't it?
It is too early to tell how the events of Egypt and Libya will help to reshape the Middle East and the Arab world at large. But it is possible that people are looking at a true democratic change in the Middle East, similar to the Iranian situation 55 years ago. As a result of the hostage crisis, there is a growing mistrust and continued resentment between the two nations. Today, Iran is developing a nuclear reactor, and as a result of it, we are at the edge of a new crisis.
We are moving in the direction of either war or peace. That there's no war, no peace, status quo is not gonna hold.
Hopefully, both countries learned the lessons of failed diplomacy. None of them have any achievements to show for the last 30 years.
There should be talks going on with Iran.
Iran and the United States are in so many ways natural allies. We should be talking with that country.
I think the two countries have to come together. Iranians and Americans are two great nations.
In the words of Robert Brault, one must look hard through history to find when a clear understanding of the truth moved anyone to fire the first shot.